Turns out my Phantom video last week was better timed than I thought. Really happy about that since I've been anxiously waiting for this event ever since it first came out on CN. Plus, I adore all of the new units coming with it. As soon as I realized the Arknights' Twitter had posted introductions to Cutter and Shamare, I knew great things were on the way. People had been speculating that this event and banner would come out in late December, so it was a pretty nice surprise to know it's coming out quite a bit sooner. The Dark Knights Memoir event is pretty important lore-wise, and the units coming with the Past Illusions banner have their own cool niches that I can't wait to talk about. So, let's do that. Timestamps are in the description, so check that out if you only want to hear about one of them.
私は勝った。ただの傭兵だ。オリパシーを患ったので、ここで働く代わりに治療をお願いしたい。この刀はきっと役に立つ場面があるはず。というわけで、よろしくね。
Cutter is one of my favorite types of unit in the game, nukers. I'm a pretty big fan of big burst damage, and she does that really well. While her initial attack may seem pretty low for a guard, just like by Beacon Chen, each time she attacks, she deals damage twice. At E160 with an attack of 439, against an enemy with 100 defense, she would deal 339 damage, but with her trait that ends up being raised to 678. No matter how much or how little defense an enemy has, this is a very welcome little gimmick. Her talent, I'll be honest, it's a little underwhelming. While attacking normally, there's a 12% chance she'll get 1 extra SP. A 12% chance for 1. This gets better at E2 where it goes up to 20%, so basically you should be getting 1 extra SP every 5 attacks or so if RNG is on your side, but it's still not the most useful. To be fair, her skills do have a pretty low SP cost, so it makes much more of a difference than if they would have costed like 40 or something. Either way, not the best talent, but definitely not terrible. Forget how mediocre her talent is, Cutter's first skill is fantastic. Every 14 hits, she can throw 4 daggers within the same amount of tiles a ranged guard has and deal 280% physical damage with them. That would be an attack increase to 1,229 at E1 max, which for a 4-star is really good, although there's a little more to it than just that. These daggers all hit random, different enemies within her increased range, which is still perfectly fine. 1,229 to 4 different enemies is nothing to complain about, but here's the thing. No matter how many enemies are in her range, she'll still throw 4 daggers. What I'm saying is that if there's only 1 enemy within that range, they'll get hit with all the 4 of them, meaning that they end up getting hit for 4,914 attack instead. Because of this fact, you can choose to use Cutter in a more boss killer-esque sort of way. Not necessarily for bosses, but you can place her somewhere a little further away from where the majority of enemies are to face off a more dangerous or beefy one. Even if this doesn't kill them, it can still chunk off quite a bit of damage, especially considering first time around it'll only take 9 hits to activate, or around 11.7 seconds. Sadly, M3ing this skill doesn't increase the number of daggers she throws, but it does bump up the damage boost by quite a bit, up to 340% to be exact. At E2 level 1, with the same stats as before, one of these attacks would be 1,492, leading up to be 5,970 when all are directed towards the same enemy. Skill 2 is a much more universal nuke skill. She gets a 380% attack boost, leading her attack to be 1,668 at E1 max. And this can attack 6 enemies at once, so in total this technically brings her attack up to 10,009, except obviously split between multiple enemies. Or is that really the case? There's an extra detail to this skill that makes her attack scale by double when this skill hits drones, meaning that instead of a 380% attack boost, she gets a 760% attack boost. That's 3,336. You know those super annoying arts damage drones from the latter half of Annihilation 3? She can reduce one of those guys' HP by approximately 53% all on her own. Pretty impressive. Overall, Cutter is a great unit, especially considering her low rarity. Investing in her seems worth it if she has the type of gameplay that you like, and even then she has quite a bit of variety. From a basic nuker to a boss killer helper to a drone annihilator, she has the range.
新しい名前はシャマレ。この子はモルテ。他のことはあんたは知らない方がいい。みんなに良くないってモルテが言ってたから。
Two things about Shamare before I start. One, I'll be pronouncing her name the same way she does because no way in hell I'll make myself say Shamare more than this one time. And two, I've actually legally adopted her. She's my daughter. Just thought I should let you know that. Now, Shamare is a debuffer and her talent ties in well with that function. Whenever an enemy in her range has less than 40% HP, they receive more damage, ranging from 10% at E0 to 20% at E1 and 30% at E2. Those percentages might not seem like much, but they mostly scale based on how high the attack of your other operators is versus how high the defense or resistance of the enemies is. Using Cutter as an example, if you remember, I mentioned she has 439 attack at E1 max, and against an enemy with 100 defense, she would deal 339 damage. With Shamare's talent at E1, this is increased to 406. And since a unit like Cutter does double damage, it ends up being 812 instead of 678. So yeah, it makes quite a big difference when you look at the raw numbers. First skill increases her attack by 40% and the talent's effectiveness by 1.5 times for the rest of the battle. This means that at E1 max, she'll be attacking for 473, which is much better than her base attack that's honestly lacking quite a bit. While this is pretty good, the part that stands out the most is her talent. It goes up by 150%, meaning that the weakening is increased to 30% at E1 and 45% at E2. Everyone who can attack enemies within her range will be doing quite a bit more damage now, including herself with her own attack increase. It's not the most flashy skill or anything of the sort, but it fits well within her niche and is pretty good for what it is. Since the talent effectiveness part is the most important one in my opinion, just to give you more information, at M3 it increases it by 1.8 times, meaning all enemies will receive 54% more damage, which is honestly pretty huge. Shamare's second talent is a really unique feature of hers. You see that doll she's holding in her splash art? Turns out she uses it in battle, specifically as a curse doll, or more accurately, a debuff doll. You can deploy it anywhere you want, and in the 8 tiles surrounding the doll, all enemies will be inflicted with minus 30% attack and defense for the next 15 seconds. I can't give the exact numbers this would do since it varies from enemy to enemy, but decreased defense plus increased damage from her talent is gonna let your operators beat them up pretty quickly. All this while receiving less damage themselves because of the decreased attack. A pretty positive thing to note is that as soon as the doll's actually deployed, this skill will already start charging up again. You don't have to wait 15 seconds until it ends, then an extra 38 for it to fully charge like you do with most skills, meaning that it technically only takes 23 seconds for it to be used again. She's solid in her niche and does her job of weakening enemies really well. Imagine pairing this with the Paramedics on skill 2. Even though their talents won't both be active, with these skills together, the enemies will have minus 75% defense, and I just find that hilarious. Anyways, all that aside, Shamare is just adorable really. She has such a cute design that's super pleasing to look at because of her limited color palette, and she deserves all the head pats.
ファントム、闇夜にさまよう幽霊、どんちょう裏の幻影。教えてくれ、君の敵の所在とその名を。
For Phantom, I have to say something important first. I'll be going over him fairly quickly since the last video I posted an entire video about him. If you've never watched anything I've posted before, feel free to go watch that instead. I'll leave it linked at both above and in the description. You could just watch this section, but I'll be skimming over the very basics of what he does since I don't want to repeat myself too much. If you're a subscriber and already watched that video, I'm leaving a timestamp on screen right now so you can skip to the little ramble I like to do at the end of videos if you wish managed to do so. Now, Phantom. He's pretty much an all-in-one fast redeploy operator with a special gimmick that's a shadow clone of himself as his talent. An exact replica of his skills and stats, but with a higher redeploy time, so he's an all-in-one and a two-in-one unit. First skill is the defense-oriented one, usable in the same situations as you'd use a gravel. It gives him a shield that absorbs physical damage equal to 50% of his max HP for 10 seconds. That means at E1 max, any physical damage he receives will also be subtracted by 641. As well as that, it gives him a 40% physical evasion buff for these 10 seconds, which is pretty solid. Skill 2 gives him 9 layers of plus 16% attack buffs. They go down by 1 layer each attack, starting at plus 144% all the way down to plus 16% on the 9th attack. And he goes back down to his usual attack value on the 10th attack onward. At M3, this goes up to 10 layers of plus 20% attack, which makes quite a big difference. Skill 3 is the one that's most like Project Red, immediately dealing 240% physical damage to all the enemies in the 8 tiles surrounding him, slightly pushing them away and either slowing, binding, or stunning them for 3 seconds. If it was a guaranteed stun, this skill would be better, but it's still really good as it is. While all his skills already seem good at a glance, keep in mind that he can either use them 2 times in a row or in 2 completely different sections of the map because of his clone. Phantom's talent gives him a ridiculous amount of flexibility and makes him so much better than what he already appears to be. Plus, he's a mysterious, handsome cat boy. Gotta love that. So, I originally had a much better ending ramble scripted out and voiced, but somehow the audio file got corrupted. I guess this gives me the opportunity to say that, wow, I'm so sorry for how terrible this week's video was. So many things went wrong, and just today in general was absolutely horrible. I'm sorry if I made any mistakes. I'm sorry I sounded the way I did. I had to kind of force myself to sound energetic, but it's very obviously forced. I was just having a really hard time. Yeah, sorry. Also sorry about the fandom situation in this video. I had no idea what to do. This is just me apologizing. I'm so sorry, but I'm also grateful. So, because, thank you guys for over 800 subscribers, closer to 900. That's super amazing. I'm really grateful, even if I don't sound grateful right now. I'm just super tired. It's really late. Yeah, looks like we might get to 1,000 before the end of the year. That'd be cool. I'm sorry. This is unscripted. Wow. I'm having such a terrible time. This was also another rushed video because this week in general has been terrible, but now, today, technically yesterday, Wednesday, the day before I upload the video, the day that I had to edit and voice the whole thing, was just the worst thing ever. But yeah, it's done now. No chance to make a better one. I hope it wasn't too terrible. I hope you got some information or enjoyment out of it. So yeah, have a nice day or night or whatever time it is for you right now. Thank you for watching. I'll see you another day.